was 1989, and my wife and I and our 3 kids were just wrapping up a week-long vacation at her folks' house in Baltimore. It was our last full day there, and we were coming back to New Hampshire the next day. And so we put our heads together, and we decided my wife was going to spend the day with her mom, and I was going to take the 3 kids to the museums in D.C. because we were out of cash, and free museums seemed like a great idea. Our children at the time were ages 2, 4, and 5, and I think we covered every square inch of 3 museums that we took in, and so it was at the end of the day, we had no more energy and no more cash. And if you've been to DC, it's no surprise. We were walking about 10 blocks back to our car, where our car was parked. I was carrying our son, the youngest, and had the two daughters by the hand as we were walking. And up ahead on the sidewalk, I thought at first what I thought was a pile of construction debris, or perhaps just an out-of-place pile of trash that hadn't got picked up. And it had started getting dark, and in fact it had started to rain. And as we got even closer, I saw there was a faint glow coming from underneath this piece of plastic. And then even closer, and I saw this shadow, and I realized there was a person under this plastic. And a little closer still, and I heard this voice say, "Stop." And I added, "And get the money." I realized, I thought to myself, I think I have $5 left, and it's raining, and that makes sense to do as we walk by. And so as we're making our way, I come around to the far end where I see it's open a little bit, and I reach in and I fish this dollar out of my pocket, and I bend over and I look down and I see it's a $20 bill, which at the time was a lot of money. And I see that, and all at once this hand comes out from underneath the plastic. Looks like a young woman's hand. And she takes that, and I hear from underneath this voice that simply says, "Thank you, God bless you." So the next moment we're walking away and trying to get to the car. But this voice inside is still saying, "Stop, and now go back." And I think, let's put some distance between ourselves and the plastic in light of the rain and the pending darkness. But you know what? It was like a rubber band that was being stretched, and the tension just grew worse. And so it was a few minutes later, as we've reached the car, and I'm putting my son Peter in the car seat and buckling Mary Ellen Sue into the back seat, and I'm climbing in, and the voice is saying, "Go back." And we drive out of the city, and we're maybe a half mile on our way, and I can't take it. And I pull over, and I look in the rear view, and Peter's sleeping, and the girls' eyes are like saucers, and they say, "What are we doing?" And I say, "We're going back, because that's all I've got." And so we're turning around, and as it turns out, I find where we just were, and there's one parking place right adjacent to the plastic on the side of the sidewalk. So I pull up. Now I'm getting out of the car, and it's raining pretty steady now. And for one moment I thought, you know what, this is just, my wife would never think this was a good idea. But I'm looking about 5 feet away between where the car is and where the plastic is, and Peter's soundly asleep, and I think, I open the back door, thinking at least I should take my daughters, and I take them each by the hand, and we close the door, and of course I lock the door, and we walk over to the plastic, and I kind of bend down, and I look in, and there's this young girl, and she looks like maybe 21, and I say, "Hi," and she says, "Hi," and I realize I really have no plan, and I say, "Can we come and just sit with you for a minute?" And she was gracious, and she said, sure, and she kind of scooched over, and there's a curb edge that she's sitting on, and there's a railing that sort of makes up the back side of the sidewalk, and if you can imagine someone who had neatly organized all of their possessions in the world and sort of stacked it in a 3-foot square spot, and the plastic was sort of draped over that. So the next moment I'm sitting down there and have my daughters kind of scooched up next to me, and they're a little bit arched so as to be able to see, and I said, I'm Phil, and she said, I'm Sarah. And all I could think to say was, what happened? Because she seems so put together and so out of place. And she takes a deep breath and she says, well, she says, here's the thing. She said, I was in my 3rd year of school. I'm from the Midwest. I came here to go to college. And she said, things were going great. She said, and I met this group of people. And they said they loved God. And we started hanging out. And I was having meals with them several nights a week. And they described that they held things in common, and bills got paid out of that. And she said, to get to the end, she said, about 3 months later, over a long weekend, I suddenly discovered not only had they not been paying any of the bills that I'd been bringing in, but I was no longer in school, I no longer had an apartment, and I no longer had a car. So she said, it made sense at the time. She said, I felt so ashamed I couldn't call my parents. And she said, so I thought, if I just get a job, I'll call them then. I'm gonna sleep on it tonight, and I'll do these things in the morning. And she said, that was about 4 months ago. And so all of a sudden, my mind just kind of like shifts into fix-it mode, and I said, listen, Sarah, I said, we're going back to New Hampshire tomorrow. I said, my wife is with her mom, and we're a happy family. And I said, I can buy you a bus ticket. You can come. We'll help you get on your feet. We'll put you up with housing. We'll help you get a job. That makes sense, right? And we'll help you out. And she kind of scooched over just the slightest bit, imperceptibly, and I thought, okay, wait a second, maybe I've like completely freaked her out. I mean, this is already sort of a bold venture here. And but really what she had done is she kind of scooched over so she could look me directly in the face. And as she did that, I could feel her sort of studying my face, and she reaches out and she's got this cart with these books stacked, and she opens up a book, and as she flips past the first page, it says prayer journal. And she flips about halfway through it with handwriting, and she finds the first blank page, and she looks at me and she says, let me get your contact information. I kind of scooched over a little bit. I kind of pulled my kids a little tighter, and I thought, that's kind of odd. Why would you refuse like a new lease on life, right? And now I'm studying her face, and I said, why would you say that? And she said, well, this might sound crazy. And I thought, whatever she says next, I think it's going to sound crazy. And she said, here's the thing. She says, every day, she says, I'm going to the shelter and the soup kitchen, and I'm bringing back those basic necessities to like 12 to 15 people in a 10-block radius. She says, I kind of feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I just have to tell you, whatever sort of altruistic vision I had of me coming and helping, maybe big of me to see this person as equals, I suddenly found myself looking up to Sarah. And I gave her my information, and she wrote it down. And a moment later, we were praying, because that seemed to make sense. And the next moment, myself and daughters had walked back out into the rain. And we're back in the car, and we're driving away. Sarah never called me. But here's what I like to think. Just maybe she woke up the next morning and she remembered a young dad and his daughters who came in out of the rain and sat with her and heard her story. And there was grace, and there was love, and there was compassion and prayer. And just maybe she walked that morning to the shelter for the last time and called home. Thank you.